So good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear partners and colleagues. I would like to thank the organizer for the invitation of the European Union and the EU delegation to Lebanon to address you at the second anti-Cybercrime forum in Lebanon, and also facilitate a discussion on the important topic of attacks, people, corporate, and trends, which is our technical track today, with an overview of cyber threats and the evolving cybersecurity landscape, technical approaches to cybercrime and cybersecurity. We'll also have an overview on update on malware, RBS, DDoS, and other type of threats on attack globally and regionally. Also, we'll have an insight into the field of cryptocurrencies and cyber attacks. So let me start by stating our delight for such a multi-sectoral group of experts represented here, which indicates a high interest in cybersecurity and cybercrime issues and the strong commitment of the relevant stakeholder in cooperating in this area. Our experts today are from the top right in front of you, Mr. Nikolai Romanov from Russia. Mr. Romanov has just arrived from Russia. His first visit to Lebanon, I guess. He's a solution architect at Trend Micro. He's an IT security expert with more than 10 years of experience. He worked on different sides of businesses, system integration, as an engineer at ITSec department on the customer side. And for the last 8 years, as a security engineer in Trend Micro. His field of expertise covers malware analysis, pen test, data center security, and breach detection system. Our second expert today is Mr. Giuliano Rulli, security expert for European agency CIPOL, based in Budapest, and Mr. Giuliano Rulli comes from Italy. And I guess for him also it's the first visit to Lebanon. Mr. Rulli has 15 years of experience in information technology and system security, specializes in consulting on cybersecurity governance, information security analysis, on R&D security technologies for various clients. He is currently senior manager in consulting company, and of course works as an expert for CIPOL, our EU agency to support, develop, implement, and coordinate training of law enforcement agencies, and strongly involved from that perspective in Lebanon. Finally, provided different trainings related to secure development, security governance, and awareness on new technologies in public and private sectors. And I would like, last but not least, to welcome our third expert, Mr. Frangier from Audi Bank, head of units with business security, and I will not say his first visit to Lebanon, as is our today Lebanese experts addressing security matters for a private company, for Audi Bank, one of the major banks in Lebanon. So, please, we are all together here at the backdrop of what is an era of technological evolution. Certainly, technological breakthrough brings great potential and helps us achieve a better future. The benefits of ICT are obvious to all of us, reinforcing economic development, enabling essential services, facilitating social connections, making financial transactions from our living rooms. The list is, of course, endless. Technology also acts as a great global equalizer. Internet empowers people in all corners of the world, young and old, rich and poor. The importance of ICT is an enabler for sustainable developments, and a means for governments' accountability that are also been confirmed in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As we witness, most countries around the globe rolling out broad ICT strategies in order to reap the digital dividends. We all realize that our growing dependence on ICT is also coupled with potential vulnerabilities. Threats posed by malicious cyber activities such as cybercrime on attacks to digital services, on infrastructure, or accidental failures demonstrates that the economic and social benefits of ICT cannot materialize in a vacuum. The fast evolution of criminal behaviors and patterns exploiting technology developments and existing legal gaps is omnipresent. This is particularly worrisome if we consider that today there are over 10 billion internet-facing devices in operation. The reality is that we are witnessing a fast evolution of criminal behaviors and patterns, exploiting technology developments on existing legal gaps. It's evident that fighting criminal activity carried out in cyberspace is a complex challenge, especially since the threshold for committing cybercrime has decreased immensely in the past few years. It's not difficult to become a cyber criminal. The required technical skills are not sophisticated, as the relevant tools are available online in user-friendly version at even reasonable prices. In recognizing these challenges, the EU adopted in 2013 its cybersecurity strategy that identifies important gaps across the European Union in terms of national capabilities, coordination in cross-border incidents, on private sector involvement and engagement. In this slide, it sets the priorities and guidelines for working in a coordinated manner to tackle these threats, and also highlights that cybersecurity is a cross-sectorial element that needs to be streamlined across all our policies having a digital component. We have identified 5 overarching principles for cybersecurity, namely, the same laws and norms that apply in other areas of our day-to-day lives apply also in the cyber domain. Second, cybersecurity can only be sound and effective if it is based on fundamental rights and freedoms, as enshrined in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union and EU core values. Reciprocally, individuals' rights cannot be secure without safe networks and systems. And third, access for all. Limited or no access to the internet and digital literacy constitute a disadvantage to citizens, given how much the digital world pervades activity within society. The internet's integrity and security must be guaranteed to allow safe access for all. Fourth, democratic and efficient multi-stakeholder governance. The digital world is not controlled by a single entity. The EU reaffirms the importance of all stakeholders, public, commercial, and non-governmental entities involved in the current internet governance model and support its multi-stakeholder governance approach. A shared responsibility, the last one, all relevant actors, whether public authorities, the private sector, or individual citizens, need to recognize their shared responsibility in addressing the vulnerabilities linked with our dependency to ICT. So I would like also to underline and stress importance on the legal framework on cooperation, because in the fight against cybercrimes, on any cyber-enabled crime, including terrorist acts, borders are irrelevant. Criminals take advantage of the territoriality of legislation to make their crimes harder to investigate and prosecute. Even more so, digital evidence has become key, as it is often the only existing lead, Access to digital evidence is essential for criminal investigations. However, it is often difficult to obtain as it is stored on servers operated by private service providers, often outside the jurisdiction of the investigating law enforcement agency. Recently, the EU member states have tasked the Commission to find solutions to these problems. The Commission also plans to improve mutual legal assistance by simplifying and accelerating requests. Other existing mechanisms to obtain cross-border access to electronic evidence also need to be improved, including direct cooperation with service providers. In relation to this, an appropriate legal framework that provides for effective international cooperation mechanism is necessary in this context, and the EU has been promoting the Council of Europe's Convention on Cybercrime, known as the Budapest Convention, to this end. And we have also a presentation of Budapest Convention later today in the second half of the Anti-Cybercrime Forum. But on the operational front as well, the European Cybercrime Center, which is called EC3 at Europol in Netherlands, has already become a central hub in the network of actors fighting cybercrime. The private sector is a key partner for law enforcement, and EC3 has established several MOUs and set up private sector advisory groups that open up new possibilities for more effective law enforcement. Moreover, Eurojust has a key role to play when it comes to supporting and linking national judicial authorities in the fight against cybercrime. Eurojust has taken a key step towards reinforced cooperation by volunteering to support the new European Judicial Cybercrime Network. Thank you very much for your attention. And after this introduction to the EU framework, tackling and addressing cybersecurity, I'm very pleased now to give words to our expert on these technical issues that we would like to search in depth. Please, Mr. Romanov.
Once again, thanks to all. What I would like to share today is a real use case in the huge bank where I was taking the participants in terms of investigation. And this bank kindly agreed to share this information without, of course, without the name of bank and without very deep details on their infrastructure. But the rest of technical stuff I will try to highlight today. And first, I would like to start from the bank profile. This bank is about 40K seats, so relatively huge. What is important to notice? This bank have a really strong SOC team. So all needed tools, all needed instruments, all needed systems are in place, are, as I name it, in the right hands. Thus, this bank, in terms of their readiness to provide any kind of assistance for investigation and in terms of early detection of attack, they have almost everything. Almost. Critical word is almost. So most prevalent type of attacks in this bank are the script kiddie stuff, like a lot of ransomware, a lot of kind of 0 days. But normally, you know, 0 days are just repacked stuff or simple macros in the Office documents. So more or less script kiddies, you know. But the second part is DDoS. This is a really headache for this bank and for each third bank in industry, because at least 3 times this year they suffered serious attacks. One of them was seriously strong because for at least 48 hours it was deactivated some of remote services for end clients. So it was a serious problem currently. But today I'm not planning to discuss DDoS in this bank because it's a different story. I'm planning to highlight some moments in terms of unusual case. Unusual not because of these tools. Because as we all know, tools and instruments are more or less the same. The most interesting part is their combination. So in this case, it was used well-known thing like Cobalt Strike. It's pretty popular this year. It was very good known Mimikatz. This is a tool for collecting the credentials within the network. A few PowerShell keyloggers, some remote control tools, plus some undetected or unclear things which were detected, but their necessity and their goal was still unclear. Why steal? Why press steal? Because the investigation is still not finished yet. And some results are kind of probability with very high rate. It's about 95%, but still probability. So the most interesting for me part here was initial activity which was detected there. It wasn't payload, it wasn't URL, it was even not CNC callback. It was lateral movement. What I mean by lateral movement, it's weak signals within the internal network. So for us, it is important to notice that almost all IT systems and almost everything in this bank is under control of SOC. But again, almost, not the whole system. More details here. Initial entrance, again with probability of 95%, was done through the available outside the Windows Server system. The most funny thing is that kind of system was available without any information, without any knowledge on the IT security department. So RD department in this bank normally use so-called agile method. Sometimes they use something very fast without any kind of notification to IT security guys. So they just deploy it, just run it, and Google successfully detected, indexed this server and their access externally. Sorry. The rest part was more or less technically simple. They put some kind of scripts. I will explain a bit more about it next slide. They compromised a pretty much amount of systems. First of all, RD department systems. Secondly, it's network admins and points, because it was an important part of attack in order to obtain the clear external access without proxy. Plus some kind of common endpoints, usual stuff, and one machine was related to VIP in this bank. After all, once weak signals were detected, it was able to collect everything with CM system. That CNC activity was related to Africa, not China as usual, but this time it was Africa. And once it was started, from network admin systems, it was started to reconnaissance scan of internal resources. In order to find more details about the network first, about the external channel which won't be limited, which won't be detectable by the SOC department. And it was successfully done because IT staff, network staff were using the test checkpoint system without any monitoring things. And after all, first activity were detected on proxy plus internal network. Later on, logs were detectable on the checkpoint, but it was just a manual investigation without any kind of scripts. Then activity moved to the network shares. It was hidden admin network shares. And some of them were infected with a special scripts. It was kind of CMD scripts. And what is interesting here, even despite the capability in PowerShell to use the direct memory injection of the Mimikatz, for instance, bad guys decided to go with dropped script to network shares. It was started PowerShell with hidden key in order to remove it to avoid any kind of user interaction. Then code was deobfuscated because initially it was base 64 within the gzip, and it was just started running in PowerShell. Then it was linked to some kind of functions on the kernel 32 level, and direct inject payload with cobalt beacon to the memory. What is a bit tricky here, all output was going to the out null, and therefore bad guys decided to schedule the task in order to keep the persistence of this attack. So it was scheduled, but not on the all machine which were compromised, but on the several one. So then, what is also interesting, these guys in SOC department were able to detect this attack in the middle of reconnaissance scan. Before, the same bank had a negative impact on the branch office, on the ATMs, but with different group of bad guys, and lost pretty much money. In this case, it wasn't done so, and reconnaissance scan, the only option which was able to bad guys, and the activity is still there because security team decided to move them to honeypot in order to keep the feeling that guys are still in the real network, in order to investigate further and possibly find these guys physically. There were some lessons learned. First of all, it's very bad communication and very negative consequences when IT security and IT departments are not able to work together. In most cases, this is a problem because some things which must be implemented, which must be done in advance on the IT security part, are not moving to the IT security stuff. And therefore, some kind of negative consequences like internal communications, external communications, some kind of gathering data for the further attack moving. It was just weak signals for IT security because they have some kind of instruments in order to find it. But initial entrance, which is also interesting, wasn't detected at all because IT staff was using their systems without any notification to the relevant teams. So after all, even those policies which were already strict enough in this bank, now it is much more stricter since the last autumn because this attack was pretty recently, just end of September and beginning of October. And now much more attention to some new systems, some test systems from IT security to IT department teams. Thus, I hope it won't be repeated again, but it's a good example how it can be done without the good interaction. But on the other hand, it's a good example that not only perimeter level is important to control, because currently a lot of things are detectable only on the level of weak signals, like, let's say, PowerShell activity, PSExec activity, WMI activity, some kind of attempts to put something on the hidden shares, and so on and so on. And therefore, it's important to have as much as wide control on the whole network as possible in order to detect something, maybe not from the very beginning, but at least in the middle of this process. In this case, you will have a good chance to stop it in advance, before bad things go. Okay, so maybe some kind of questions from your side about the details of this, or maybe some more interesting things from your side in order to exchange. You can raise hand here now, or maybe it can be discussed later on. All right. Thanks for attention, and I hope it will be pretty interesting for you.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. And I'm sure that some question might anyway be raising just after the whole scope of intervention. So right now, Mr. Rulli, Giuliano Rulli.
I want to explain briefly something regarding cryptocurrency and crime. Just to start, cryptocurrency is a medium of exchange using cryptographic to secure transaction and to control the creation of the new units. Some of the future of cryptocurrency is, the first is pseudonymous. Sending and receiving bitcoins is like writing under pseudonymous, writing a book like a pseudonymous. If you don't want you are the writer, you don't have to tell anyone you are the writer. But if you tell you are the writer, everybody knows that you are the writer. In these analogies, the book is the address with you receive money, receive payment. Another characteristic is that money, the cryptocurrency is self-mined. So it's you have the ability, if you want, to create your money. Obviously, it's all regulated by mathematical process, by a procedure. And this procedure says that the creation of cryptocurrency like Bitcoin is made at predictable rates. Every 10 minutes, the protocol creates now about 12.5 Bitcoins. And it's done without a central authority. There's no centralized authority that governs the cryptocurrency and how these cryptocurrencies are generated. This is made by the distributed consensus. So all the participants of the network, the Bitcoin, participants to say that if transaction is a real transaction is okay, or you have to discard this transaction. So they control, all the community control if you have the authority to spend the Bitcoin you want to spend. To spend the cryptocurrency you have to spend. Another feature is that every transaction is irreversible. When you spend your money, is no way to have them back because there are no central authority. There are no one you can ask them back. Because it's a pseudonymous. You don't know who is under an address. You don't know who is the owner of an address where you go, where you spend your money. Cryptocurrency cannot be frozen because there are no central authority. You own your money, you own your Bitcoins. And another important thing is that it's open source. You have free access to the code of the Bitcoin, and you can control the mathematical process behind this protocol. I'm trying to explain in simple model how it's work. Well, at the start there are miners. The so-called miners miners are the user that have the ability to generate, to create money. Everyone can do that. You can download a special software, it's open source, obviously. And from your PC, from your hardware, you can try to generate money. Why try? Because you have to solve the problem. If you solve these problems, this mathematical problem, in concurrency with the other user, the first have the ability to create the Bitcoin. So, when the Bitcoin is created, is disposable for the users. So the user can obtain Bitcoin on mining, or with exchange, with donation, with selling goods, and so on. The user have an electronic wallet. With this electronic wallet, he stored the money, he stored the Bitcoin, and then he can use this money to some purpose to buy something, to buy goods. And by this electronic wallet, you can make a transaction. This transaction is verified by miners and stored in the blockchain. The blockchain is like a ledger. Every transaction from the beginning of the history of the, in this case, Bitcoins, are stored in the ledger. You can know everything about the transaction from money, movement of money from an address to another. It's clear, it's public. Everyone could do it. But you don't know by the ledger who is the owner of this money. Well, when we talk about physical commodities, we trust in something like gold. Government bank, we trust someone like money, fiat money. In cryptocurrency, we have to trust in mathematics. This is the principal concept. So all the rules are regulated by mathematics. Here I want to show something about a comparison with the other goods like barter, gold, fiat, and Bitcoin in this case. As we show, Bitcoin is not a physical money. You can't touch Bitcoin. Nobody prints Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an electronic money. Bitcoin is a file that's stored in your PC, in your electronic wallet. But if you see, most of the characteristics of the Bitcoin, most of the future, are better than the fiat currency. Obviously, than barter and gold. Except, obviously, for their acceptance. Because to manage cryptocurrency, to manage Bitcoins, is not like to manage fiat money. Fiat money, I can touch it, I have in my wallet, I can use it. All the people accept my money. With cryptocurrency, that is not true. I have to find someone accept my cryptocurrency. And it's not so easy to find now. In this chart, I want to just some number of the phenomenon about the market capitalization. This is the first 10 cryptocurrency now you can find on internet. The total market capitalization is around $14 billion and exists more than 650 cryptocurrency. This is a huge number. As you can see, the first cryptocurrency is Bitcoin that have the most market capitalization, around $12 billion. This is the trend of the marketplace, of the market price of Bitcoin in the last 2 years. Yes, 2 years. Yes, 2 years. Just to show that the line is growing up, and the value of one Bitcoin yesterday was more than $700 American dollars. Well, which is the best crime challenge? First of all, the inability of the owner to restore the value in case this cryptocurrency is stolen or lost. Stolen, obviously. Why lost? Because to spend my money, I need, obviously, the address. This is a public address that everybody could know when I receive the money. But I have another address called private key, and this is my password that enables me to spend my money. If I lost this key, if I lost this password, there is no way to spend the money. There is no way to access this money. Obviously, it's stolen. Well, another challenge is pseudo-anonymity, of course. Obviously, why don't I adopt a mechanism that doesn't provide a way to trace it back to a thief? It doesn't require proof of identity. To acquire money, to spend cryptocurrency, I haven't given my ID. Another is the speed of transaction. Speed of transaction, in addition to irreversibility, make me the possibility to complicate the interception of the transaction. There are a few minutes, 10 minutes, because the transaction is real in cryptocurrency, and is a very short period of time compared to a wire transfer that makes days to do. So it's a very short time in which the thief can provide this crime. Well, obviously, poorly developed regulation and the vast international network. Obviously, this, for the scale, provides an opportunity to reach almost any corner in the world. This is a great opportunity for the thief or for the bad guys, making it easy to do illegal business in country with developing or law enforcement system. Some of the illicit uses of cryptocurrency. The first of all, Tor and the dark web. I think you know what is dark web. And so internet is often depicted as an iceberg. At the top of the iceberg is the legal internet. The internet, as we know, the internet in which we can search arguments by Google or by Bing or search engine. Below, we have the deep web. The deep web is an internet that couldn't be indexing. So you can reach it only if you know the address of the content. Below at the bottom, we have the dark web. The dark web is a network overlay on internet that can you access it by a software called Tor, the onion routing. This is an open source software that you can download from torproject.com. It's very easy to install. It's a web server. It's based on Firefox, and it's very easy to install and very easy to use because it's user-friendly. You have to choose just if you want to use it on your own or you participate to the network of Tor. So with this network, you can access to this dark web. And the dark web there is plenty of dark marketplace that you can find everything. Drugs, you can find stolen robbery, you can find everything you want. And you can buy it by cryptocurrency. The most accepted is Bitcoin. So you have this Tor network that is not indexing. Tor network provides anonymity. Nobody knows your IP address. You use Bitcoin that provide pseudo-anonymity. So these things together give you the chance to buy goods without anyone can know you are the buyer. So you can hacking, of course, with cryptocurrency. You can hack mining in the mining process. That's very difficult technically, that doesn't explain. You can hack exchange where I can buy Bitcoin, where I can buy cryptocurrency, or I can sell cryptocurrency. I can hack in wallets, of course, because the wallets could be on my PC, or wallets could be on the exchange site. It's easy to use wallets because a wallet could be used by cell phone. It's very easy to spend money with cell phone. You have your app installed, you have to know the address of the seller, and with just one tap, you can spend your money. It's very easy. And hacking automatic teller machine, ATM. Yes, there is ATM. There is more than 250 around the world of the ATM machine is growing up. So another easy use it is money laundering. Of course, there is a site that's called I don't remember now, localbitcoin.info. That's this is a site where you can meet people physically to change your Bitcoin, to acquire Bitcoin, to sell Bitcoin. Physically, there is no way to have your ID because the ID is not shared between this person. And it's very, very difficult to track it. So you have another fraud, like for fiat currency, with Ponzi schemes and phishing. Phishing is an interesting way because cryptocurrency could be about some new phishing techniques. One of those is that I send an email with a wallet backup and with the private key and ask you to, because I'm problem, ask you to spend this money with another address, to another address. Well, I can say that the transaction is free or has a lower fee. It's very, very cheap. So if I open this file, this backup, I install a malware on my PC. This malware search for my wallet, install all my Bitcoin. So we have terror finance and crypto extortion like ransomware, which we talked before in the previous section, exploitation of women and children, murder of wives, and a lot of this stuff. Well, there are some techniques addressed to solve some problem because the anonymity in cryptocurrency is not so strong. With data mining, with effort, you can, in some case, find the owner. But it's very strong work, but it's possible. So new techniques are addressed now. Like, for example, Bitcoin were moved from several addresses into a single one with aggregation. Addresses not associated with the theft use the client stolen money with folding. A large amount of Bitcoin was split among 2 or more addresses, like split mechanism. Small amounts were peeled off from a succession of one-time change address, peeling chain. All these mechanisms are addressed with these new techniques, like mixing services. Sorry. Okay. Mixing services that provide the ability to exchange Bitcoin for different ones coin join transaction, confidential transaction, dark wallet, new coin. So all these mechanisms are now implemented. You can find it in the internet, and it's still working, except for the dark wallet. Now it's in beta version, but it's still entered the end of the year. Maybe it's released. How to fight the cybercrime? We have to remember that cyber criminals are adaptive adversaries, so we have a step ahead of them. Possible ways adopt the normal techniques like de-anonymization, anomaly detection, and rescoring. Maybe we see transaction volume, obfuscation patterns, frequency of use, change address, and multiple transaction, coin-based transaction. There is a lot of technicality inside, but I want to show you that there are the ways to fight the crime. But very, very important is the collaboration between companies, which is all the entities involved in this matter.
Thank you very much, Giuliano. According to the space time that we might find at the end of the session, maybe we will raise some questions. But now I understand that if you were interested to open a bank account with Bitcoin, definitely Audi is not exactly the bank who will welcome you with open gate. Please, thank you, Mr. Frangi.
Hi, everyone. Well, I would like to add something related to cryptocurrencies, is that they are a headache for governments and agencies across the globe because the nature of cryptocurrencies is anonymous, meaning that nobody knows who owns the money, and it's a concern for money laundering, tax evasion, and drug dealing. I was happy actually this morning to hear the opening sessions, because a lot of the points mentioned in our presentation were tackled in many presentations. It means that the cybersecurity professionals are aligned, which is a good thing to fight off cybercrime. So Agent Son this morning was talking about the challenges to defining cyber. How about defining cyberspace, cybercrime, and cybersecurity? What do you think about that? It's a challenge by itself because a lot of governments and a lot of banks, financial institutions, and companies do not fully understand the implications of cybercrime and cybersecurity. So if a challenge is not very well understood, how do you want to tackle it? So basically, you know, let's start by defining cyber attacks and cybersecurity. Cyber attacks, simply put, it's a computer-to-computer attack using vulnerabilities, exploiting vulnerabilities in the target computers. And basically, cybersecurity is how do we protect the digital assets and the information assets we have on hand. Well, how do you know which assets are important? You need to do a risk assessment. You need to do an asset classification to figure out where is your sensitive and confidential data residing, because how can you protect the data if you don't know where it is? So the first step in protecting your organization cybersecurity-wise is to conduct a risk assessment and an asset classification. And depending on the asset criticality, then you decide how much you want to invest to protect that information. Basically, cyberspace is several online networks connected together. You pick up your phone, you send a WhatsApp message to China, you get the response back in a matter of seconds. You go to Google, you look for a hotel in Paris, in London, you get the results in a few milliseconds. Where is this going? This is going over the cyberspace. And why it became attractive to cyber criminals and cyber crooks? Because now you have online banking, you have e-commerce activities, you have online shopping. So that's why cyberspace became an attractive place for cyber crooks and cyber criminals, because a lot of sensitive and confidential information is traveling on that space. Credit cards, PII, personally identifiable information, and so on. So what are the consequences of a security breach in your organization or in any organization? There are many consequences. To mention a few: penalties, reputational damage. Okay, so if you are a bank or a financial institution, you have to deal with the central banks. And even if you're not a bank or a financial institution, you have to deal with the reputational risk and damage as a result of a security breach. Okay? So no one is safe from cyber attacks. Any organization that have a web-facing application and e-commerce activity is a target or a candidate to be attacked by cyber crooks. Basically, there are two types of companies: the companies that were hacked and the companies that will be hacked. And they are actually converging into one: hacked and will be hacked again. How about the companies that were hacked and they don't know it yet? I have a slide down the road that I will show you that takes around 200 days for a company to identify that they have a malware inside. Do you know what can happen in 200 days with the malware working on your own network? What kind of information is being sent to a command and control center? I'm not going to go through this again because Agent Son this morning mentioned how the anatomy of a cyber attack happens, but look at the first one, information gathering. This is like free information. They go to your website, they go to your social media platforms, and they start gathering information about your own organization. Okay? The second thing, they start scanning your perimeter security devices. They scan your open ports and things like that. And they start attempting to get into your network via an email with a malware attached, via a vulnerability on your web-facing applications, and so on. There are many attack types out there. APTs are becoming more and more sophisticated and persistent. You have the bad data injection, SQL injection, cross-site scripting. You have DDoS attacks that are tremendously becoming more sophisticated and a pain to defend. Back in October, you all heard about the DDoS attacks that were using more than 600 gigabytes of data per second. So which DDoS solution can defend that? I don't know of any. Do you? So which means that DDoS are not going anywhere. They are being used by hackers and cyber crooks to take money from organizations. And regarding Bitcoins, I was reading an article last week that some banks in the UK and in Europe are putting aside some Bitcoins on the side to pay the cyber criminals because they thought it might be easier sometimes to pay the cyber criminals with Bitcoins rather than trying to solve the issue at hand, such as ransomware. And the example that we saw this morning at the Hollywood Hospital, who paid $17,000, because hospitals, they don't invest as much in security like banks and financial institutions. So if a hospital was targeted by ransomware and they have electronic medical records, they don't have paper anymore, and they're doing a surgery or an intervention on a patient, then they have to pay the ransomware fee, whatever it is, because they need access to patient information. So it was also mentioned this morning that banks and financial institutions probably are the most protected. That's true because they have the money to do so. So hackers keep on looking for the weak link, the small companies who cannot invest much in security. The weapons are many. These are some of them. And I'd like to share with you that buying a ransomware is probably cheaper than a cup of coffee online, whereby you can buy it and you set the price. So if you target an organization or a company and they get infected with this ransomware, then you decide how much money they want to pay you so that you unlock the ransomware. So we're seeing a strong comeback for ransomware, Trojans, viruses, all sorts. And especially during the holiday season, last Friday in the US was Black Friday, and yesterday was Cyber Monday. So hundreds of thousands of customers in the US received bogus emails because the cyber crooks found an opportunity to send bogus emails that take you to a phishing site and telling you that there's a 70% discount on the iPhone, on the iPad, or whatever. So if it's too good to be true, then it probably is. And now the holiday season is around the corner, so be careful from receiving SMS messages, emails, and things like that that take you to a phishing site and try to take your credit card information. Well, the motivation behind attacks, basically 80% is about cybercrime, purely financial gain and reputational damage. And then you have hacktivism that are motivated by political and social ideas. And you have then cyber espionage, basically stealing corporate information, disrupting operations. A good example of that is the Stuxnet virus that targeted the Iranian nuclear power plants. And then you have the cyber warfare, which is electronic war between nation states and organizations, terrorist groups, and so on. Don't look at the slide, too much information on it. There are two things here I'd like to point to them. The $500 billion one was mentioned this morning. That's how much it's costing the global economy. That's how much the cyber crimes are costing the global economy. Okay, this is not a small number. Maybe you don't see it much yet in Lebanon because, hopefully when the internet gets better, e-commerce activity, gets bigger, then you would see more cybercrime and cyber attacks here in this country, okay? And I also mentioned that it takes around 200 plus days for a company to figure out that they were targeted by a malware, because your antivirus system is not gonna catch a zero-day attack, but your threat intelligence and behavioral analysis tools may be able to help you to identify that you are infected with a malware or a virus. I mean, it took me some time to kind of tone it down to 2 slides. Usually this was a 2-hour presentation. I tried to summarize it in 15 minutes. But, the first step in the measures that companies should take is make sure that cybersecurity is integrated within your risk management program, okay? Make sure that your applications, your software are always patched and updated on a regular basis. This is still one of the areas that hackers and cyber crooks try to benefit from, okay? Because one weak server would let them in. Don't focus only on the core servers, focus on all the servers that are in production. Make sure that you have a cyber incident management and response function. Training. I'd like to focus on training a lot because awareness is 50% of the battle. The more aware you are, the more aware your users are, the better your organization is protected. Just by the fact that they can tell a phishing email from a legitimate email, that by itself would help your organization be protected. There was a true story about a company that was hacked because they found out that on social media that the employees of that organization were talking about their company lowering the salaries and lowering pay. So the hackers were attracted to that company because they found that there's an entry point from this discussion. So don't discuss your organization and company issues on the social media platforms because somebody is watching. They are also watching the CEO blogs, CIO blogs, CTO blogs, CEO blogs. So hackers, they love blogs because why? They get information that they can use later on to penetrate the organization. So what they did in that real case about the company lowering pay, they sent an Excel spreadsheet with the malware attached to it to the HR manager. So the HR manager receives an email with an attachment called payscale.xls. The second that HR manager double-clicked on the Excel file labeled payscale, the malware was injected in the malware, and then they were able to penetrate that network via that malware that costed the company $60 million. Just that double click. So identifying phishing emails, phishing scams can protect your organization tremendously. Number 6, adopting a layered defense strategy. I have a nice slide for you. I'll show it to you later. Basic security hygiene, they talked about that this morning. Hiring qualified cybersecurity resources. In the US alone, there is a shortage of 1 million cybersecurity professionals. I was UK early in November attending a cybersecurity conference, and someone from the UK government was telling us that they established a cybersecurity national bureau and they're looking for at least 50 cybersecurity professionals. So that profession is in demand. Make sure that you hire the right resources to do the job. I mentioned number 13, PII is personally identifiable information. I say it again, if you don't know where your sensitive and confidential information is, how can you protect it? So it's very important you know where your information is so that you protect it, okay? Number 14, I can talk about it for hours, but I don't have time. I'm just gonna mention that a lot of you, a lot of us, deal with vendors. This is a very critical issue today, okay? According to a recent survey, it turned out that 92% of organizations surveyed, they don't have a vendor management relationship procedure. 70% of them, okay, they don't check the security of the vendor. 60% of them allow the vendor to remotely connect to their internal network. How scary is that? And even more, 63% of the information leaks started from a cyber attack on a third party. So my advice to you, do a risk assessment on your vendors, on your existing ones and new ones before you engage with them, and know which information you are sharing with them. Don't assume that your information is secure at the vendor before you really check the security measures that the vendor has. Some good resources to rely on are ISO 2701, PCI DSS, NIST, and COBIT. PCI DSS is not only for companies that process credit card. That's not true. Any company in any industry can benefit from the PCI DSS requirements because they are really good and that would help you against cyber crimes. DLP and MDM are a must. Data leak prevention. This is one way to minimize the risk of data leakage. But in order to implement an effective DLP, again, you need to know where your sensitive information is, whether it's structured or unstructured. Structured means on the databases, unstructured it means Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So you need to do that exercise in your organization so that you can properly protect this information. Look at number 18, propagation speed. If you post a Facebook picture, in 1.2 minutes, around 5,000 computers receive your picture. In 2.4 minutes, around 340,000 computers receive your picture. Did you know that? So the message here is be careful what you post on social media. Because once it's out there, you can never remove it or erase it. And I repeat, don't discuss company or organization matters on social media because hackers can exploit that and use it against you. This is one of my favorite slides. I mean, we can talk for hours about this one, but the point here is layered defense strategy, which is a combination of technical and non-technical controls. They're not sorted in any importance or in any specific way. They're just sorted alphabetically, okay? So, and how you go about implementing these measures, that depends on the outcome, on the results of the risk assessment I mentioned earlier. So you conduct a cyber security risk assessment in your organization, and based on the results, you should be able to identify where are your pain points, where are your security weaknesses, and then you start tackling them by priority. So this list is not comprehensive by any means, but it gives you a good idea on the technical and non-technical measures that you should be able to implement in order to strengthen the security posture of your organization. Any questions on this one? So, what's your role in cybersecurity? There's a myth out there that cybersecurity is only the responsibility of the cybersecurity professionals, IT security, and information security. That's absolutely wrong. It's the responsibility of each and every single user in the organization. Why? Because on a daily basis, you receive emails, you handle sensitive and confidential information. So you're responsible also for information security and cybersecurity in your organizations. It's a board level issue. It's a CEO issue. It's a shareholder issue. It's no longer information security team responsibility. Each one of you is responsible for making sure that the information at hand is properly managed and secured. This was mentioned earlier today about CEO scam. This is one of them. Emails impersonating senior managers. I'm going to Paris, send me 50,000 euros because I need to buy something, so they are putting psychological pressure on you. It's coming from your CEO. You would not dare to challenge it, and you would wire the money. Pick up the phone and call them, say, I received an email from you. I just want to make sure this is a legitimate request before you wire the transfer, before you wire the money. So there was an investigation by the FBI earlier this year, and they found out that around $2 billion were scammed using the CEO email scam method. So don't fall for it. Don't fall for the pressure and the psychological pressure. Because the email is coming from the CEO doesn't mean you have to act on it immediately, especially when it's involving wire transfer, urgency, I need the money right now. It means that there's something suspicious. So pick up the phone and call them, make sure that this is a legitimate request. Emails and attachments. I can never say enough about this topic, because on a daily basis, you receive a lot of emails, you receive a lot of attachments. Make sure that the source of the email is known. Am I expecting this email? Am I expecting this attachment? Read the email before you open the attachment or click on that embedded link, okay? Double check the email address, because oftentimes they use a very similar domain name to your domain, but there are like two letters that are flipped, the I before the T before the I. You would not notice that. Take a few seconds, it only takes a few seconds to double check to make sure that the email you are receiving is from a trusted source. If, in case of doubt, send it to your help desk. Ask them to scan the attachment before you open it and jeopardize your internal network, because the scan they will do is outside the network. Links in emails. What's a quick way to figure out what the URL address is? Before clicking on the email, what do? Put the cursor, put the mouse on it, hover around the link, it would show you the real address. Very easy, it takes 2 seconds. Don't click on the link. Put the cursor on the link, and then you can read the email address below, the URL address below. Phishing, we talked about that. They talked about that this morning. Don't fall for that. Social engineering, they also tackled that this morning. It's basically pretending to be someone they're not. I'm the CEO, I need the password reset for my online banking platform. The thing is with social engineering is that it puts psychological pressure on you. They use big names. They use the CEO name. They use a senior manager name. Why? To intimidate you. Because if the CEO is calling you, you would not be asking them the 3 security questions you have at hand, would you? Right, because they would say, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to do the password reset for that CEO, right? Caller ID spoofing, that's a technical method that uses internet servers. So if I'm calling my colleague Walid, I can display on his phone somebody else's phone number. Why? Because there's a technique out there called caller ID spoofing, and I can call my colleague, but then I can put your phone number. So he would think that you are calling him, okay? There is no solution for this one because we spoke with the local carriers. They can't do anything about it because it's relying on internet server, so there's no control over this. So the best way to defend against this is hang up the phone and call that person on the number you have on file. USB sticks, if you find one, don't use it, give it to your IT help desk. Email hacking, we talked about that. Don't execute any wire transfer instruction coming via email without calling back the customer and making sure that this is a legitimate request and you have the right IBAN number and the right beneficiary information. Almost done here. Here, basically, we're saying this is mainly for banks. No customer can change their info over the phone. They have to come into the branch to sign on that phone number and email, because this is how the communication happens with them. And mainly stay up to date. I spend around 10 to 20% of my time is spent on research, because daily there is news in that cybersecurity space, so staying up to date is very important. We spoke about those. And then last but not least, you are the last line of defense. So be vigilant, keep your eyes open. If you see anything suspicious, report it to your service desk. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind attention. We have still 2 minutes for last questions to other experts, if by chance some of you have a question to the experts. So we will leave, please.
Sorry, could you repeat, please, a bit louder?
It's a question about lateral movements.
Yeah.
So you spoke about the importance of this movement, of detecting these movements in order to detect threats.
Right.
Can these movements be detected with traditional security tools, or do they require some advanced tools or even advanced skills?
Yes and no. Yes, because there are more or less traditional tools like journaling or logging. And in case if you have kind of log monitoring system, it's traditional stuff, yeah? You are able more or less to detect at least some of them, but not all of them. Let's say activity like officially allowed things like PSExec or WMI, which are very popular for the last 1.5 to 2 years in terms of attacks, because they're legitimate software, officially not denied by the policies in the company, and thus the only way to see that something goes wrong way, to see any kind of time frames like source destinations and so on and so on. But in general, some of these activities can be detectable, some of them not, because some of specific attacks related to specific patterns of activity. Let's say patterns which must be known in advance. And there are more or less traditional nowadays things like BDS systems, which is relevant to this. It's hard to say, is it traditional now or it's a new one, but it's a hybrid approach, because anyway you should use all your available stuff, plus you should be available to read the result of any activity. Because in some cases, if we are talking about SOC guys, it's okay with them, because they are really strong teams, normally in banks. But in case if there is no SOC team and just IT security guys, a few of them, it's hard to understand what kind of outcome goes, what kind of triggered events, how to read it, how to interpret it, and so on and so on. So it's a balance between the usage of instruments and the right usage of these instruments. Okay?
So we wish you pleasant continuation with the second part of this technical track with moderator Mr. Mark Ibrahim from St. Joseph University.